Aloha, I'm Elena Hugh. Welcome to another edition of PTC TV, brought to you by PTC'15 Platinum sponsor Equinix. This is the last of 5 programs specially created for PTC'15. Mahalo for joining us for PTC and PTC TV.
Aloha, I'm Sharon Akama, PTC CEO. Thank you for joining us on PTC.org for the final installment of PTC TV for PTC'15. Please enjoy the video of our Wednesday keynote sessions and our awards luncheon. Mahalo for tuning into PTC TV this year, and I look forward to seeing you at PTC'16 from January 17th to the 20th. Ahui ho!
Hi, I'm Adam Janota from Equinix. We see an evolution happening right now. Revenues of the world's top 100 networks will grow less than 2% over the next few years. Traffic routed through data centers will grow at 23%. That is triple the volume. Does your strategy leverage the world's key data centers where clouds and customers connect? Savvy network providers are evolving their service offerings in order to grow their revenue streams, expanding capacity, automating their network infrastructure, adding cloud services, leveraging cloud exchange, and building hybrid clouds. Talk to us. We can help you connect to the cloud and accelerate your growth.
PTC'15 is made possible in part by the generosity of the PTC'15 sponsors. Mahalo to the PTC Diamond sponsor, Tata Communications. Thank you for all of your support. Alan Malden of Telegeography presents their latest data on global internet capacity trends.
Global internet capacity trends. So we've been gathering data on the capacity of internet backbones around the world for about 15 years now. So I'm going to provide some data looking at data for the past 10 years, really, and seeing what has changed around the world in terms of how the internet has been growing. So the issues we're going to look at today, I'm going to look at: is the US and Canada still the leading inter-regional internet hub? Second, I'm going to look at if there's any new internet hubs that have been emerging around the world. And finally, I'm going to try to look at the impact that content provider networks could be having on the pace of internet capacity growth. So we have to have a map to start every telegeography presentation, right? So here's a map. It's old. 2004, this is the global internet. This is the line show the bandwidth between the various major world regions scaled by capacity. And just so you know, the line that goes above the top of the world, there are no cables there. We know that. We're not idiots. It's just designed to show the various capacity between the regions. So yes, there are cables across the Pacific Ocean, as you guys know. So in this map, you can see that clearly the highest capacity link was between US and Canada and Europe, followed by US and Canada and Asia. The other routes, very small, very thin lines there. Let's go to the current view. It's just this past year, data 2014. Things have grown. Also, it's worth noting we had to change the scale actually as well. So the scale is different. You can see here, the biggest line was 400 gigs in the upper right for the legend, and here it's 5 terabits. So we had to change things, and even with changing it, There's a lot of thick yellow lines there. So all the regions have grown. Even some of the smaller interregional routes have been growing as well. You just can't see it as much given the change in the scale we have here. Let's dive a little deeper and look at some of these actual figures and see what's been changing. So, is the US and Canada on top? It's still on top. In 2004, it was nearly 800 gigs of the total capacity of other regions that connected to the US and Canada, right? Followed by Europe, Asia, Latin America, and Africa, very small. So, how have things changed? Kind of surprising, right? You saw the map with all the lines getting very big. Well, the fact is the US and Canada still has a large amount of interregional bandwidth connected to it, followed by Europe, Asia, Latin America, Africa again. But you can see that Asia, Latin America have been growing fairly rapidly and have nearly reached the same level as Europe here. So why is US and Canada still on top? It's really due to Latin America. So this chart here that I've created shows the share of international internet bandwidth connected to the US and Canada. So as a share of the region's total international connectivity. So for many regions, Asia, Europe, Africa, it's been going down since 2004. In contrast, Latin America, a very high growth area, has been growing, has actually increased the past few years and has remained over 80%. So given the strong growth in Latin America, and it's all largely focused to the US and Canada, that has helped the US and Canada to remain the top hub. So the second issue I want to touch on was what are the other hubs we're seeing emerging. So I did a similar chart looking at Europe. And Europe's role as a hub has definitely been growing in the past few years for many reasons. So this figure is showing the share of international internet capacity connected to Europe. So the lines here are some subregions within Asia and Africa. So North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia. And they've all been on the rise. So what is it about Europe that's drawing more capacity to Europe? Well, it's closer from many of these regions, so there's lower latency to go there. The price of IP transit in Europe is the same or cheaper than it is in the US and Canada. And finally, Europe has a very rich peering scene. So many operators want to connect to DKIX, AM6 links, and the other exchanges that are there to be able to peer off some of their traffic and to help to keep their costs lower. One other trend that you could probably see from the maps I showed at the beginning are the capacity of these major interregional routes is nearing parity, actually. And it's been pretty striking when you look at the past 10 years of just how far things have narrowed between these major routes. So looking at 2004, Europe to the US and Canada, far and away the highest capacity route, followed by the Trans-Pacific, Asia, US and Canada, then Latin America to the US, Asia, Europe. I just showed the four highest capacity ones here. Contrast that to what we saw this past year. Wow, right? So the transatlantic isn't the biggest for international internet backbones. Neither is the Pacific. It's US to Latin America, which goes back again because Latin America's connectivity is focused really on the US and Canada, whereas other regions have heavy intra-regional traffic, but also they link to other regions as well. So their connectivity is a bit more diversified. The last thing I wanted to cover here is how international bandwidth is being used. And so internet has been the largest component of bandwidth usage for quite some time. The area chart here in blue shows internet, the red is showing private networks, and the little bit of yellow is voice, switched voice. So the red part is pretty interesting because what is private? The way we define that is it's non-internet corporate WAN traffic, it's research networks, and the biggest component right now actually is content provider networks. So all the names you guys know, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all the internet players. So what's going on here? There's the red is starting to go down and account for a larger share of capacity usage. So looking at the source of demand shifting, what this is showing here is just the growth rate in the Atlantic and the Pacific where a lot of the content provider activity has been focused in recent years. So the lines are showing the annual growth rate of new capacity being added, and you can see the diverging trend here. The blue in the bottom is internet backbones. It was once above 40% in 2009, 2010, and now it's been just over 20% for the past couple of years. Contrast, private networks has been increasing and has been well over 50% the past several years. So this is leading to some changes in who is consuming the most bandwidth and who is really accounting for a lot of the growth going forward. So I think that's something that we've seen at the conference here is the increasing role companies that are involved in the content delivery and the content creation and the cloud businesses are having in terms of who is using who is buying capacity and putting it into their network. So just to conclude quickly before the time runs out here, US and Canada, still the top hub for inter-regional bandwidth, as it has been for the past 10 years. But we're seeing parity among the major routes that link the regions together. And finally, the growth driver is shifting a bit from the internet backbone operators towards the private networks and the content providers. Thank you very much.
A very special mahalo to the 2014 PTC Board of Governors for their year-round leadership and support. PTC'15 is made possible in part by the generosity of the PTC'15 sponsors. Mahalo to each of the PTC Platinum sponsors. Thank you for all of your support.
Now that our ecosystem is fully developed and it's fully out and being utilized today, we're taking it to the next level. And establishing a colocation product as a full-service colocation offering is critical. Now that we have a backbone in place with the optimal, robust connectivity options available, our colocation services can now be introduced. So we'll be focusing on bringing out a full-service colocation market across our entire portfolio. Our colocation product will include not only the space and power that we traditionally offer, but the services that are tied to colocation customer requirements. That is connectivity to the internet, that is connectivity to cloud providers, that is providing connectivity to and from markets, between regions, between countries, between continents, and across the globe.
Are you plugged into social media? Then join the conversation online. Follow PT Council on Twitter and use the PTC hashtag #PTC'15. You can also like Pacific Telecommunications Council on Facebook. PTC'15 is made possible in part by the generosity of the PTC'15 sponsors. Mahalo to each of the PTC Gold sponsors. Thank you all for your support.
So when we talk about the agility gap, it's the difference between networks that were built, say, 10, 15 years ago, where things tend to be very static. They're provisioned, they're left in place, you can't really do much with it. That's a very difficult network architecture to use in today's world, where speed, velocity, time to provision, that's really the differentiator out there. Service providers, network operators really want a network that's far more real-time, far more agile. Ciena developed agility, which is a combination of the SDN controllers as well as the network level applications, to really give our customers the ability to go in and program the networks to take on whatever shape their business needs to be. It gives the carriers and network operators a way to program the network so it takes on the shape of the business that they want to conduct.
Please enjoy Cisco's Doug Webster's presentation of the Visual Networking Index report.
As Stefan said, I lead marketing for Cisco Systems service provider business, and as part of that responsibility, I oversee a thought leadership team we have. This is a small group of brilliant quantitative minds and subject matter experts that we kind of push off to the side, keep them away from everything else, and we lean on them to advise us on the actual trends that we see coming out in the future to help guide our overall engineering roadmaps. And that was very much the genesis of the Cisco Visual and Networking Index. It is, we started to advise our engineers, and in the process of socializing it with others, they asked to use it, and now it's been nearly a decade and is keeping that team quite busy, making sure it's reflecting the latest and greatest in the industry. Now, part of the reason I think there's so much attraction to it is because it's a very rich and complex methodology. We take third-party inputs from various analyst firms, including Telegeography and many others. We have more than 24 broadband feeds from service providers around the globe that allows us to analyze this anonymous data. And we also have more than 1.5 million people using our applications on their various devices. And every time they use it, it feeds additional information back into this study that we're able to go and publish them once a year. Now, because of that type of methodology, we found that overall it tends to be quite, fairly accurate. Usually we're within about 10% of the actual projected growth. In this particular case, you'll see that we estimated in 2010 IP traffic in 2013 was going to be just under 50 exabytes a month. The actuals were around 51.5 or so, and so those were around 3% accuracy. More often than not, we are on the conservative side. In fact, that's part of our methodology. When we need to look at various assumptions, we'll go for a more conservative approach. There can be some situations, like a few years ago, with the macroeconomic conditions in Europe slowed their overall mobile broadband build-out. And as a result, we were a bit aggressive, but then that's why we do this every year, is to continue to refine the methodology and reflect the latest changes. So let's get on with the findings of the study. This is for the years 2013 to 2018. And we anticipate overall traffic is going to increase threefold, rising from 51 exabytes a month up to 132 exabytes a month, which reflects about a 21% compound annual growth rate. Now, if we start to extrapolate this on an annual basis, that means that by 2018, we will actually be having an annual run rate of 1.6 zettabytes a year. Now, when we started this study years ago, we measured everything in petabytes, Then we moved to exabytes, and now we're into zettabytes. So we've had to change the unit of measurement multiple times then in less than a decade. Now, a zettabyte, in addition to being a really fun word to say, is about 1 trillion gigabytes, or 10 to the 21st power. And 1.6 zettabytes is the equivalent of about 13 times all of the internet traffic that existed in 2008. Now, the reasons for this growth are many. But they include the fact that there are more users that are coming onto the network, and we'll talk a little more about that. There are more devices, of course, from those users, as well as an increasing number of machine-to-machine connections. The faster broadband speeds, in this 5-year time horizon, we're anticipating overall broadband speeds, both fixed and mobile, will increase an average of 2.6-fold. And more, the usage that we're seeing on the network is video. In fact, video is going to comprise about 79% of all the IP traffic by 2018. So the network is inherently becoming a visual medium. Now, diving a little more onto users, we estimate there are going to be nearly 4 billion users by 2018, which, if you look at the UN modeling in terms of anticipated population of about 7.6 billion, will mean that more than half of the world will actually be connected onto the internet. You'll see the overall growth rates vary by region. North America and Western Europe, you'll see, have a very low compound annual growth rate, in large part because the overall internet penetration levels are so high. Asia, and not only has the most amount of internet users, which makes sense based on its overall population size, but also has a very strong compound annual growth rate as well. So we're seeing some incredible growth there. One thing to note about Asia, it's always difficult to put this into any one category because there's such developed markets there, some of the, really the most advanced in the world, as well as some more developing markets. So if you go online, you can actually get details at a per country level as well. Now, this is an interesting situation because it tends to be flipped then when we start looking at overall device growth. We're anticipating about 21 billion network device and connections. And you'll see the very strong growth rate in North America and Western Europe that already had high internet penetration. And that's in large part because in these developed markets, people are looking to connect more and more things. They get a lot of value out of that and as are investing. In fact, if we go through a count of the number of internet-connected devices that the people in this room has, I'm sure it'd be well above average. Asia Pacific, though, is interesting because not only do they have the most internet users and a very strong growth in terms of internet penetration, also has a very strong growth in terms of the overall number of devices as well. So really, Asia Pacific is getting, both on the users and the devices, some really dramatic growth. All in all, there'll be about 2.7 devices or connections per capita, and it was very much in line with a comment made in a session yesterday about the need for mobility. More than half of all those connections are going to be touching the mobile network. So as network architects, we need to look not just on one means of access, but really this type of growth is going to be affecting it in every single way across the entirety of the architecture. Now, there are a lot of different trends that we have within this study, and you can slice a pie a lot of different ways. We actually go through and look at 10 different trends, spanning everything from the effect on tiered pricing to broadband growth, content delivery networks and their important role in delivering video. Wi-Fi technology is very interesting as well. And then we also have a whole study on the different services that are driving that growth and the variances that you can have per region. But given the time limitations today, I'll go and just highlight just a few of those, in particular around one of the major device transitions that we're analyzing right now. And that's going into the rise of 4K or Ultra HD television. You can see from the left side, the standard definition requires about a 2 megabit stream. HD goes up to 7.2, and Ultra HD hits to 18 megabits per second. And it's going to go even farther if you looked at the demonstration of 8K from NHK that was yesterday and the day before. Stunning picture. That's going to go up to 85 megabits per second once compressed. So as you look at this particular one, though, just as the growth of ultra-high definition televisions starts to go on the right-hand side from only 1 million in 2013 up to 202 million, then the impact of those devices can yield significant changes in the overall broadband landscape. I received a Ultra HD television over the holidays, and it is absolutely awesome. I mean, it really kind of pulls you in. You want to watch more and more television as a result of that. But then my personal footprint on the internet landscape then becomes significantly higher, because even though Ultra HD televisions are only going to represent about 20% or a fifth of all the televisions out there, it's actually going to represent, it's going to account for 8% of the total traffic across all devices and across all mediums. So just that one device now can make really a sizable dent on the overall landscape. Now, another big growth trend that we have seen and that we spoke about during this session has been machine to machine. And on this particular one, we start looking at the overall number of connections. We're looking at machine to machine being about one device per capita on the globe, reaching about 7.25 billion different connections by 2018. Now, most of these connections usually don't have a great deal of bandwidth. With the exception of something like a video surveillance, most of them are going to be optimized to have very low amounts of bandwidth. But the important part is to look at it, even though it may just be a heartbeat or a query ping that goes out from these various sensors, because so many of them are going to be connecting to the mobile network, it puts incredible strain on the signaling plane of the mobile network as well. So we always encourage our customers when we're reviewing this data with them, don't look at this as just a bandwidth situation, but more reflective of other aspects of the architecture as well. And you can see that the overall amount of growth, I mean, this particular machine in particular is going to be growing the fastest of all the different types of devices that are coming onto the network. It will be increasing from about 18.5% in 2013 of all the devices to over 35% of all the devices. So this is the one area to really keep an eye out and see how it continues to evolve. Now, another interesting aspect is that you start looking at peak versus average IP traffic growth. If you just take the overall average findings and apply them out to the network, we're going to miss it by a mile. And that's because just as in back on the voice network days when architectures had to be optimized for the Mother's Day phenomenon, when everyone's picking up the phone and calling their mom and need to make sure it was going to work, now we need to actually make sure that the networks are working during these peak periods by day. And we refer to that as the internet prime time, which goes between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. when we see the largest peaks on most of the service provider networks. So you see the average hour is going to be increasing at that 21% compound annual growth rate, but the peak hour actually is going to increase faster, which means that the wider this divide, the more capacity and issues that are going to be coming into the network need to be factored into account. And because this is usually when people are starting to stream video, then it brings into account all sorts of latency issues as well that need to be factored into play. In fact, if you look at the variance between the busy hour today, which globally is about 2.7 times higher than the average hour, we anticipate it's going to be 3.3 times higher than the average hour in 2018 because of this preponderance to watch more and more video. The gap is even larger in Asia Pacific, where it's going to be going to 2.5 times fold increase in 2013 to reach a 3.2-fold increase in 2018. So lots of different aspects to take into account there. The last one I'll highlight was mentioned yesterday as well is all going to be around IPv6. And one of the panelists says, as an industry, we need to do better on IPv6, especially with all these different connections coming on. It's just going to be necessary to really keep the ecosystem thriving. We'll see that from 2013, we had about 16% of all the connections, around 2 billion were IPv6 capable, and and by 2018, we anticipate that to be nearly 50%. So in this next half decade, there's going to be some very strong growth, in essence, effectively tripling the number of IPv6 devices, but it's still going to be a long ways to go before we fully made that transition. And as a result, we should expect technologies such as network address translation to be in the networks for well past the forecast period of this particular study. So I'll leave you with some closing thoughts on this session that as much as we can in a forecast look to estimate all the activities that are going to be taking place and then what is the resulting effect, there always can be some things that get in the way and that can yield different outcomes. There can be the macroeconomic situation that I spoke of. There can be some geopolitical situations which can actually remove certain countries off the internet itself. But there also can be a number of surge events that can take place, whether it's a national incident that requires lots of people to get news, whether it's something that a national passion that everyone wants to be engaged in. And we saw that in the Sochi Olympics, where several of our operators had peak demands more than double their all-time record, all because it was a hockey game, and it was during the work hours, and people were watching the hockey game on their mobile phone, or a cross-country ski race that we're seeing just for these big surges that can take place. One of the most recent ones that is of note was what we refer to as the network effect of the beautiful game. If we look at the World Cup last summer, there was 4.3 exabytes were streamed, which is the equivalent of 3 times the monthly internet traffic of Brazil alone. So even these different elements can come into line and really can have a market effect on the landscape. So I encourage you to learn more. I'm sorry, we were a short time. We can't necessarily go in. I could speak on this all day, but we do encourage you to please look at the various research we have. Use it liberally. All we ask is that you please source it to Cisco V&I. Thank you very much for your time. I'd like to thank the host for being outstanding to myself and all of my Cisco colleagues. And thank you all for being there and for the ongoing discussion about how we can make this industry thrive. We're very much thankful for it. And we look forward to seeing you again and continuing the discussion in the months to come. Mahalo.
PTC'15 is made possible in part by the generosity of the PTC'15 sponsors. Mahalo to each of the PTC Silver sponsors. Thank you for all of your support.
Weekdays are for rising to the challenge. They're the days to take care of business, when possibilities become reality. With CenturyLink as your trusted partner, our visionary cloud infrastructure and global broadband network free you to focus on what matters. With custom communication solutions and responsive, dedicated support, we constantly evolve to meet your needs every day of the week. CenturyLink, your link to what's next.
Infinera's approach to the subsea space is to bring you the industry's best and most powerful innovations, help drive your ability to generate revenue and lower costs to create a competitive advantage, and to deliver to you a subsea network that's designed for optimum performance for your customers. Don't just take it from us, take it from our customers, from around the world that have trusted in us and continue to grow their network with the best subsea network upgrade in the business.
Let's join GE's William Rue for his keynote presentation.
I'm going to give a brief self-introduction. I'm based in San Francisco with RBC, and I'm an investment analyst. I cover the telecom carriers, telecom infrastructure, internet infrastructure, data centers, hosting, cloud computing. And I'm pleased to introduce Bill Rue from GE Software, and maybe provide a little bit of context for the audience in terms of your activities, GE's role in Internet of Things.
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, GE realized that, and they could see the customers were starting to change how they used our products. So GE makes locomotives, CT scanners, gas turbines, wind turbines, a lot of oil and gas equipment. And so when you look across this, we love rotating machinery. Anything that rotates, that's what we love to build. But the reality is that when people look at operating these machines over 20, 30 years, we were finding that they were starting to add a lot more sensors, they were demanding a lot more sensors, and they were starting to use data in new and innovative ways to change how they use those assets. They were trying to get more out of it. And we realized that a lot of the people we were seeing work with those customers were different than our traditional competitors. We're seeing what we'd see new startups. And I think as a company, we realized if we didn't start to get into the game of software and analytic products surrounding how we connect machines, use data, deliver analytics so they can get more out of an asset, somebody else would. And in the end, that's going to be the most valuable kind of commodity in the world today, is how can you get more out of these kind of assets. They're big, and we intend to play in that space, but we also see it as a huge market.
So on that point, so the opportunity that you see concrete, how would you kind of size it, dollars and cents wise, both for GE and maybe for some of your partners?
Yeah, we did a study, and it's on the GE website, and if you just go to gesoftware.com, you can get this paper. We call this the industrial internet, and the reason we did is we realized that most of the money is being made on the consumer internet. In fact, if you look, it's really all about the consumer today. The industrial side, I think, we realized, however, is a much bigger opportunity. So Bank of America, did a study. They showed it in the industrial sectors we serve. There's $32 trillion a year spent, and I think whether it's 25 trillion or 50 trillion, it's still the biggest number and biggest economic activity globally. We did a bottoms-up analysis, and we then began to say, look, what if you can get just 1 mile per hour more per average out of a locomotive? What if you got 1% greater fuel efficiency on a gas turbine? So gas turbine, 1% fuel efficiency on just our gas turbine fleet globally is $6 billion of opportunity. 1 mile per hour faster on a locomotive average per day is worth $200 million profit to a rail. So you start to look, and we found just in bottoms up across the top 10 industries in the world, there's $1 trillion with a very small efficiency gain in big machines. And those gains are not going to come because of the physics, because we're starting to see the physics is slowing down into what you can achieve. But the real efficiency is in the operations of it. And we've seen some amazing ability to build software that provides these kind of changes in the world.
So you need a network to make this happen, and how would you characterize some of the challenges? Is there an opportunity for carriers? Yeah. How do you kind of view that side of the equation?
Well, I believe that the carriers have probably the best opportunity because they have this important piece of real estate, which is the connectivity. And just having sat in a lot of these sessions, I think that the idea of IoT is, I don't think that oftentimes they realize how much machine traffic is already running across the network, right? But the fact is, that there's a bigger opportunity above that. Well, the real game is going to be who is able to provide a series of services on top of that. If you want to think of it, the killer app that enables people to do a bunch of things. One is they have to be able to put intelligence into their machines. And because you're going to have to do more at the edge. What we've discovered is that a lot of the technology is being developed, or how do you get pages faster to your mobile devices, things like that. You're not serving up pages. And so in the end, you've got to rethink the edge computing environment that's out there. And everybody who builds machines is looking for solutions. The second thing is that you start to look about how do you collect data and how do you do analytics on those at a very fast rate. And so when we look at it, it's not just the analytics, it's actually one thing. It's this idea of zero unplanned downtime. That's the killer app. So if you can bundle this and be able to allow customers to give zero unplanned downtime, we see this as this $1 trillion to $2 trillion a year of inefficiency in the system that's immediately available. And so when you think of IoT, nobody in a business like a rail says, I want to connect my locomotive. Could you please connect everything I have? And because there's no value in it. But if you come in and say, look, I can show you how to get to zero unplanned downtime, now they want to have a conversation with you. And so if you think about the last 2 tries in the industrial sector for IoT that failed, RFID was the first, because it was, we can connect all your stuff. Well, that didn't work. Nobody cared. Then it was the smart grid. Remember when the smart grid was the $1 trillion opportunity? And all those companies now are sort of not turned into $1 trillion opportunities. It's because everybody was just saying, I'll connect you. I'll connect your machines. And the buyer's not the CIO. The buyer is the operations guy. And so the opportunity is, as a service provider, can you go sell to a non-traditional person? Can you move from selling to the CIO, which you're still going to sell to? Can you sell to the head of operations? Can you tell them, I can deliver zero unplanned downtime by connecting all your machines and giving you this killer app? And then suddenly you're into a conversation. But that really means you got to move from the IT environment to the OT environment, operations technology. And I'd say this is where that service providers are going to, if they want to play here, are going to have to rethink their ecosystems. It's not going to be IT vendors that are your best partners. It's going to be guys like us who can actually help deliver on that promise.
So talk a little bit about the progress you've made, and different carriers have extremely entrenched cultures. Is it going to take months, years, quarters? How do you kind of view the cultural challenges, I would say, and are they as significant as the, or maybe more so than the technical challenges?
Yeah, I joined GE a little under 4 years ago, and I was fortunate that at our chairman and CEO Jeff Immelt, and he goes out and says now, if today you woke up an industrial company, tomorrow you're going to wake up a software and analytics company. And he really believes this. It's not that we're going to stop selling locomotives because we're going to make all our money there, but he's saying if you don't have as a core competency software and analytics as an industrial company, you can't play in this game. And the last discussion on cameras, if your whole world is analog cameras, you can invent the digital camera technology, but you don't know how to absorb it into your business. So he's saying, we're going to absorb this in our business. So we've made an investment of about $1.5 billion to get ourselves organized. And we've built out applications around, say, our wind turbine. We built an application that takes weather, sensor, wind data. It takes a lot of historical data about, and looks at what kind of behavior is the best for an individual wind turbine given a situation. And that software generates 5%, 4 to 5%, we say 4%, but we're almost always seeing 5% more electricity. And when you take that 5% is 20% profitability to them. So we are building these applications that are like this against our product line. And as a result, we have 40 of those out there. We'll generate well north of $1 billion of net new revenue on those this year, or in 2014. And so for us, we've learned about the killer apps, and then we've figured out the kind of industrial fabric you need to collect industrial data, to secure industrial data, to do the edge computing, to do the analytics, so for us, it's the idea of that kind of an industrial framework. I think as you look at the opportunity, what service providers have to think about is how do you, take their data center, their cloud, the bandwidth, the network, and monetize that with this kind of capability to go deliver this. And we signed a deal with SoftBank, for example, in Japan, to do exactly this. So we're now going in the market talking to industrial companies and saying, look, we can help you take all your equipment, put KPIs on them, and optimize your equipment out in the field. So everybody who builds a piece of equipment is seeing new opportunity for themselves, new services they can offer using this kind of capability, plus they deliver a better experience to their customer. So I think this kind of thinking has to go into it, but you got to remember it's different than the consumer internet, and it really does require a different way of thinking to go after this market.
So I do want to open it up for questions. We have about 8 or 9 minutes left. If there are any, please make yourself visible. You did mention cloud briefly, so service providers, I was kind of thinking more carriers, but in terms of more the cloud-centric providers, where do they play in this equation?
Yeah. Well, I think that that's going to be an interesting discussion. You know, I think that this gets down to who's going to win the battle, right? Because there will be, given the size of this market, we already start to see it heating up. So you can look at a company like Google, for example, and they got great analytics skills. They have a cloud search environment that can't be beat. They don't need network providers, et cetera. They could decide to go into the space. The thing that they missed is domain knowledge. So they would need to partner with people in these domains because they have tried healthcare and it hasn't worked out for them, right? So domain knowledge is important. So they have an opportunity. I think that, and then you look at what Elon Musk has done in automotive and space. He's already shown that you can get into this and disrupt the market. So I think that cloud providers can get into this space with the right partnerships or gathering the right domain knowledge and could move faster. The thing is, I think in 2 to 3 years, it'll start to become too late to form a strategy and move forward. But it is unclear to us who our best partners should be, who we should work with, who's got, you know, because you are having to deal with a much higher level service. But the fact is, this will be delivered as a cloud with the one thing that changes here and why the cloud guys may or may not play well is there's a lot more at the edge. You cannot ignore the edge. You can't bring everything back to the cloud. It's a different environment. And that's where I think the winners and losers are actually going to appear, is who gets it on the edge, who can make the edge and the cloud hum together.
Yeah, that's an interesting convergence that I think has been highlighted in some of the other sessions. Audience questions? In the back.
Hi, my name is Mark Adams. I was just wondering, I hear comments of 10 billion devices talking to each other. The amount of traffic here is huge. How do you separate the wheat from the chaff? That I could see systems choking on the amount of information that's just log files that are just rolling in. How do you manage that?
Yeah, that's what I get to the edge devices. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One is, our latest engines, jet aircraft engines, can generate 1 terabyte per flight, and so you're not gonna send 1 terabyte during a flight, and so you're going to do more real-time processing near there. So a lot of the real-time embedded systems, which is the edge computing environment, are now becoming more programmable, where you can add in analytics inside an aircraft or on a locomotive, and that's going to be the future. You're going to collect a lot of data, and then you're going to do the analysis. The second thing is you've got to find the right time to move the data. So for us, the right time is you pull up, and while you're refueling and they connect, you're downloading the data. The second thing is, though, you don't always want to download everything, and this is the tricky part, is what do you want to keep, and how long do you want to keep it? So you could download the whole terabyte, but you then probably don't want to keep a whole terabyte. On the other hand, what we find is, as we go along, we keep finding the more data you have, the more interesting questions you can ask. So we have suddenly discovered, if I collect everything, and I have 2 years plus of data, we think we can actually diagnose any product or part that's going to break 100 flights plus before it breaks, because the signatures are actually in the data. So now you really have to decide, how much to keep and what's the cost, and so on. So I think we're early on trying to figure this out. Most people are still throwing away a lot of data. But as we see the idea of prognostics and preventative maintenance as being a killer app, if I could tell you to fix it in a scheduled downtime at an airline, you can get rid of the 41% of mechanical delays, which is, bottom line to the airlines, nearly $1 billion a year. So these kind of things, you're going to trade off that. Now, the fact is, though, however, it's going to come down to that they're going to look at a multitude of ways to transfer data. But I'll say this, they already are doing this. We are transmitting a terabyte when you land into a system. It's just not necessarily, you know, the question is, what's the network? But the network providers don't know what it is. All they know is some data's moving around. They don't know, is it a video and so on. So there's a lot more going on than they think. Everybody's trying to figure out how to move more to the edge, but they're realizing collecting everything and managing all of this data could get to the point where you can do real prognostic maintenance that it sort of sounds like science fiction, where you are saying, look, I know it's going to break at flight 97. I'm going to fix it, you know, 20 flights ahead of time. And now you've just really taken a lot of costs out of the system. So, you know, I think that these are some of the driving factors, but we believe that people are going to collect more and more because of prognostic maintenance that AI techniques are going to drive. Without the AI techniques, they're going to collect zero. They're going to collect zero.
Joe.
Yeah, Bill, you talked a lot about kind of the architectural and economic philosophy. Could you also talk about how GE is shifting its focus to business outcomes and the differential value proposition?
Yeah, so this gets back to the killer app. What we learned is the technology is of no interest to the operations guys. You go and talk to the CIO, they get real interested. Yeah, I want to connect everything. I know we're going to go there. This is the strategic direction. And they know they're going to be left holding the bag to do the technical work. The problem is that that without that killer app, it's just the technology that no one is willing to put the money into. So the ops guys say, if you can show me either better generation on, you know, more throughput on my equipment, or you can show me savings to that equipment. Now you got my attention because the numbers are so large. So outcome, everything is about outcome. And we, you know, when we go in and talk, and I'll say that, you know, our executive leadership will say, they don't go talk about the industrial internet, they don't go talk about connectivity or any of that. They go talk about zero unplanned downtime. And that's what people care about. That's the killer app. So for us, we found that it's all about outcomes, it's all about zero unplanned downtime. The other one is I can show you how you can generate more, optimize that piece of equipment. But if you look at it, anybody who's in the, you know, the power generation business, you know how much electricity gets lost through the system due to inefficiency. We all know the healthcare system is ripe with inefficiency. We all can look at anything like, you know, rail. I'll give you one rail example about how complexity has changed. So we have something called Movement Planner, and it advises how to optimize rail traffic. And last year in the US, with the extraordinarily bad weather, the storms were slowing down the system. And what we found is that we were recommending that the most high priority trains actually get parked, and the lowest priorities get moved during these weather. And those parts of the system that used that found that they cleared up in 24 to 48 hours. Those whose people ignored the advice and did it the way they thought, which is move the high priority stuff through, they were 2 to 3 to 4 weeks into it, and still the system was fully clogged. And the rail had to say, finally, we want you to use that advice. And when they did, it cleared it up in 2 to 3 days. So the complexity of the system has got to the point where people make individual decisions that they just don't understand enough of everything. And the big data coming in is going to tell you that, but you have to see those insights. So if you can deliver an outcome where you can say, I can clear up this kind of congestion in a few days, that's worth a lot to them. And I think that's the killer app. If you deliver that killer app, you're going to pull through. They're going to be willing to connect everything, collect all the data, pay for the bandwidth, because it's a small amount of money compared to the overall economic advantage of getting rid of the congestion in 2 to 3 days in particularly nasty weather conditions. And I think that's outcome-based solutions are going to be the killer app here. And those who get it right will win, and those who try to sell the technology into the CIO will find that they're not seeing the kind of economic gains that are possible here.
So we're in 1 minute stoppage time. I'll just maybe wrap up with one. You gave some transportation examples, renewable energies, oil and gas, and some of the partners that you are working with in that sector.
Yeah, again, in oil and gas, I go back to the edge computing. We've worked with Cisco, for example, to take a hardened router that would sit on an offshore oil platform and take in our Predicts platform technology, married them. So now I think the idea, again, of edge computing in the network, we've discovered the network is the best piece of real estate to put this. And when you start to think about your network and you start putting services at the edge, it becomes a very sticky situation, both for us, because our equipment is better. We provide just, an environment that delivers those outcomes. But at the same time, those people we're working with that can think about how to get higher level services in the network, it becomes very sticky because now your network is in fact an application. And as you know, applications are harder to replace, especially when the ops guy goes, but I'm delivering this, I make this much money, don't screw around with my operational environment. So I think the idea of the network, and that's a great example where we're working on the edge and it's in the network. And I think the network is the computer as we move into this kind of industrial IoT space.
So if there's anything beyond your control, and we're here a year from now, and we've seen some wild successes, what are the challenges that you will have observed either on the network side or on the technology side, or is it more a matter of culture and adoption?
It's all a matter of the industrials are particularly, I'd say, skeptical of technology, IT technology. And so they look at this and say, you're pushing IT solutions into my world. They're traditionally used to buying proprietary, let's say, stovepipe systems that the IT guys are often kept separate from. So now what we're saying is IT and OT have to come together. This is going to drive a cultural shift. And so those organizations that figure out how to talk to the CIO and the head of ops, those who figure this IT OT integration, that's where this is going to go towards. And I think that's the hardest thing, is it's a big shift. The OT guys are going to drive this. The IT guys are the ones who are going to bring the technology in. And that's where this has to come together. So if you think about, as a service provider, if you're going to play in this space, you got to think differently. You've got to have a strategy. You've got to have a new ecosystem, because it isn't IT. It's OT. But you have a great piece of real estate. You own something that nobody else does. And if you can figure this out, I think this is when IoT becomes a much bigger opportunity than selling even bandwidth and mobile phones and enabling cloud. It's going to provide the next generation of big leaps and bounds in revenues.
So there's spectrum auctions that are going to end any day now, and I think that'll help alleviate some of the congestion points. Yeah. So we are, okay, real quick question here. And
in a given organization, let's say there are 10 different OTs, will they end up with the 10 different IT as well? Will the IT be decentralized, or will it remain centralized?
No, I think this is the point that this is where the internet plays in, and I just simply say this: the future is going to be the world of IT, and what we've learned about networking, et cetera, is going to replace these OT systems, and whoever figures this out and how to drive that in the right way is going to win. But remember, the OT guys are skeptical because that works. So the fact is, we're going to get there where there are not 10 OTs, but it's going to take. It takes a little more work because there's two cultures coming together, and that's the hard part. So I just leave you with that, but that's what's going to happen. So
we are out of time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
At Shaw Business, we listen to our wholesale partners. From investing in our technology to extending our network's reach, we're committed to providing everything you need to meet the demands of an increasingly connected world. With industry-leading transport speeds and a dedicated customer service team to support your business, we offer the services you need to be successful. Shaw Business, providing reliable network solutions so your customers won't miss a thing.
When we kicked off this PTC'15 conference about 4 days ago, we already knew it would be jam-packed with informations and interactions, and I'm sure that you feel that. And the day has been long, and I don't think the night no shorter. In fact, I was actually up all night last night. But I'm sure it's been worthwhile, hopefully for you. And thank you for being here with us, for taking the time out in your very busy schedule to fit into this annual event. Now, every delegation, every participant is important to our overall experience and overall success. So thank you each and every one of you of being a part of PTC. During these 4 days and in the earlier part of the new year, we have seen the visions of a new dawn on the ICT landscape. ICT, as usual, has been undergoing extraordinary growth and development, but there is something truly special this time about what is emerging on the horizon, whether it is in the technological domain or the areas of policies and strategies. We have encountered many new ideas, insights, frameworks, paradigm shifts. Again, this is all due to the role PTC serves as a sharing platform for our ICT industry community. At the start of this conference, I had mentioned that it is hard to predict the future. 3 or 4 decades ago, people imagined that by the year 2000, we will be having flying cars. People imagined that and surely by 2015, of course, we would be living on the moon as well. But in fact, what they have not anticipated was the rise in social media, such as Facebook and Twitter, and the popularity of something called selfie. So I can't predict the future in detail, but we will very likely be greatly impacted by continuing advances and applications in mobile, social, big data, cloud computing, global networking, and of course the Internet of Things. As our theme in 2015, Networked Planet, we should also continue our effort to bring affordable broadband access to all. Broadband is the magic that will take a society with the Internet of Things to a society, hopefully, to the Internet of Everything. I'm already looking forward to PTC'15, where I'm sure we'll continue on this exciting journey of development and discovery and hear the latest insights and experiences from all stakeholders. In closing, I wish to offer my heartfelt thanks on behalf of the PTC to a gigantic group of people involved with producing this fantastic conference. Big thank you is to our fellow board members, board of directors of PTC, our advisory councils for their contribution and leadership, to our partner sponsors for the continuing support to make our PTC conference tremendously successful each year, and to delegate speakers and panelists who have shared their experience, excellent speeches and industry insights. To the program committees, our co-chairs and vice chairs and secretariats of the committee, and a big thank you to CEO Sharon Nakama and her team, working groups, and enthusiastic volunteers who have done so much to distribute the workload of the conference and whose tireless effort have enabled us to manage the large number of contributions received from members. And of course, to the members and delegates who have taken part in this conference. Once again, I hope you have enjoyed yourself during the stay in Hawaii, and be sure to tell us what you like and how you want to improve the PTC conference. We need your voice and involvement so that we can improve PTC. I look forward to seeing you all at PTC 16. Thank you very much.
PTC 15 is made possible in part by the generosity of the PTC 15 sponsors. Mahalo to each of the PTC bronze sponsors. Thank you for your support.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming to the lunch today, a closing lunch for us. I am hugely honored to have been able to get re-elected as President and Chair of PTC this year, and thank you so much for your support. I promised Sharon that I will make my speech very, very short. So I'm just going to make one statement. We're going to make, and I hope that we're going to make PTC better and better with the support, of course, with our Board of Governors, our AC advisors, and all the staff working around the Secretariat. And hopefully that, we'll have a better PTC 16 compared to this year. I already know that the registration has been up since last year, but nonetheless, until the numbers come out, we won't know for sure. But I pledge that I will work very hard ensuring that all the stakeholders benefits, so that we'll have a great PTC 16. Thank you very much.
And now please welcome Fedor Smith, President, Atlantic ACN.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you very much to PTC for letting us be part of these awards. This is my 9th PTC, and for obvious reasons, it's one of my favorite conferences, but it's also one of the most productive because it does bring together a great group of industry folks to share information and do business. So we are here to present our 2015 Global Wholesale Report Card Awards. Since 1995, Atlantic ACM has been conducting market-wide customer feedback surveys across business and wholesale markets to get impartial customer feedback on how carriers are doing across a number of operational and product categories. These are specifically looking at international wholesale services, and the awards are based on 1,500 carrier ratings from about 400 different wholesale buyers. So a really good cross-section of the market. And we scored a total of 24 different carriers, and we ended up with 4 winners this year. So some real clear front runners in the report. The first one we'd like to invite up is KDDI Global, who won for network performance and voice value. We have Tom Sorge here from KDDI to accept that award. He is a VP of Business Development. These awards are very significant because network performance is the #1 priority to customers, and price is #2, which is part of the value chain. Congratulations.
I just want to thank everybody and my team back home. I'm sure they're going to be very pleased in receiving these awards because they put a lot of work and dedication into this. and we're still a good quality route and a good carrier. So whoever wants to use us, just let us know. Thank you.
Up next, we have a very, very big winner. We had two carriers that really cleaned house. Oh, I apologize. I overlooked one very key element here. We've broken out these awards into two different segments, one large carrier and one mid-sized and under. We qualify mid-sized as anyone who makes less than $15 billion in wireline revenue. So they're not so much mid-sized. But we did want to differentiate between the largest and the large. So the winner in the mid-sized category for brand, sales rep, provisioning, customer service, billing, and data value is TeliaSonera. And we have Brendan Ives, the CEO of TeliaSonera, here to accept that award. Congratulations, Brendan. This is actually the second year for them to win brand, and as well as they've done very well in the past in a number of different categories. So up next, we get into the large carriers, and we have two different winners here. The first is BT, who won for voice value. Unfortunately, they have very little representation here, so we have no one to accept that award. But the bigger winner, who in the large carrier category won handily for brand, sales reps, provisioning, network performance, customer service, billing, and data value, is Deutsche Telekom. Clearinghouse across almost every operational category, and we have Dr. Holger Magnuson here to accept that award on behalf of Deutsche Telekom. Congratulations, Holger. Thank you very much. One thing I dislike about when they win is it makes me feel very, very little. Oh, I apologize. We do have someone here from BT. I'm sorry, your name and title? William Bruce here to accept on behalf of BT. Congratulations, and thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have your award down. So finally, congratulations to all of our winners. Thank you all for being here to help us appreciate their performance, and thanks again to PTC.
Next, please welcome to the stage Elizabeth Fife and Mark Chun, co-chairs of the PTC Research Committee.
Aloha. I'm happy today to introduce the winners of the student paper prizes, and then Mark is going to introduce the young scholars for PTC 2015. So first of all, our student prize, the O.S. Bronstein Award winner, is Tyler Tokanuga. Tyler, you want to come on up? Tyler's a senior at the Marshall School of Business and the Dornsife School of Letters, Arts, and Sciences at the University of Southern California at USC. His paper is called Japanese Smartphone Manufacturing and Strategic Agility. So, congratulations. Okay, and our second prize is for the best senior research paper from a senior researcher. This is the Mihiro Jizuwala Research Prize. So our winner is Seungwook Shi. Would you like to come on up, Seungwook? As well as the co-author, Roo Min Ho from Naver in South Korea. And Seungwook Shi is from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. And the title of their paper is The Economic Effects of Domestic Search Engines on Online Advertising. So, congratulations. And these papers can be found online, and they're very useful and interesting, so I suggest taking a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends of PTC and colleagues, This is the third year that PTC has done some amazing work with our new generation of young researchers. This year, I am proud to announce that we have 5 young scholars who have gone through a very tedious process of reviewing their papers and competing with many of the top scholars across the nation. We're very proud of them. Before I announce who our young scholars are, I would like to acknowledge the PTC board and the CEO Sharon Nakama and Richard Taylor and the rest of the board, thanking them for providing the opportunity to bring in new scholars to PTC and to reinvigorate a lot of the research ideas that are coming through the organization. These young scholars have done a great job at bringing in new ideas to the industry, and we're very proud to recognize the work that they've done and would like to welcome you all to our community here at PTC. So with no further ado, we would like to introduce our first young scholar, and the first young scholar is Victor, thank you, Dibia, and Victor Dibia is from the City University of Hong Kong. Victor. Our next recipient is Snow Dong, and Snow Dong is from Penn State University. Our third recipient and young scholar is Gregory LaRose-Cillier. Did I say that right? I want to say that one more time. Gregory LaRose-Cillier from Baylor University. And ladies and gentlemen, we have our fourth young scholar, Won Kyung Ri from Waseda University in Japan. Our fifth and final recipient is Moinul Labor, and he is from Carnegie Mellon University. As you can see, we've done we are very fortunate here at PTC in recruiting the top universities and the top scholars from across the nation, and we are very proud to welcome them here at PTC. So once again, can we please give a round of applause and welcome our 5 young scholars from this year.
Next, please welcome Bruce Drake, Chair of the PTC Awards Committee.
Recently, PTC lost the visionary that established our organization, Richard J. Barber. And as at this conference, recognizing the contributions that Richard made, I'd like to ask for 1 minute of silence now in recognition of the contribution our founder, Richard J. Barber, provided. Thank you very much. As all of you As all of us who have been privileged to have known Richard appreciate how much his imagination, his enthusiasm, his drive, his relentless enthusiasm meant to the founding of this organization. Subsequently, PTC established a Richard J. Barber Award, Distinguished Service Award, that recognizes each year a member of our staff with the community membership or a volunteer who has provided significant service to our organization over a number of years. It's my privilege today to name our recipient for this year. Our Board of Governors has approved the recognition of a PTC supporter and leader who in fact attended the founders' meeting of 1978 and contributed significantly from that day forward. A member of the Board of Trustees for over a decade, he chaired both our seminars and education committees and a conference committee. He also served as a member of our Communications and Publications Committee. He was a leading member of our executive board, and with our governance transition to a Board of Governors, he was promptly elected by members to serve us all for many more years. The firm he founded and led, CGI, hosted and sponsored a memorable mid-year seminar in Alaska with a focus on what he loved to assist, those in remote and underserved areas, those on the margins. Notably, during our most challenging period as PTC, he stepped forward to underwrite the launch of the very award he's receiving today. While his health has precluded attendance for the past few years, that does not prevent all of us who have benefited from his leadership, his vision, his support, and his friendship from recognizing all he has done. Please join me in a round of applause for our 2015 Richard J. Barber winner, Robert, i.e. Bob Wolp. Thank you.
And now please welcome to the stage Sharon Nakama, Chief Executive Officer of the Pacific Telecommunications Council.
I'd just like to make an acknowledgement. PTC is hoping to, and we're working to invigorate PTC itself with our membership. And we have had an example by PTC, our PTC Japan committee. Within PTC Japan, they have created another category, a new category of membership, and it is called, let's see, the Innovation Networking Group. And this is led by Ubayama-san. Maybe you can stand up so everyone can see you. The Innovation Group consists of young entrepreneurs, of developers and users from industries across all businesses. They come from academia, from travel, from telecommunication, technology, ICT, but really they touch a lot of the new industries of users, which we of PTC also tries to encourage to become part of our membership. They have 28 new members of these innovation members, and 12 to 15 of them are here at PTC'15 this year. And according to what I am being told, PTCJ expects all of them to come next year to PTC'16. But I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Nabekura, who is the PTC Japan chair, and through him, this new innovation, they're trying to invigorate their Japan chapter, and they're doing quite a good job. Finally, as part of our awards luncheon, a special video has been made for you. So I just like to say this is the last that you're going to see of anyone standing up here and talking. We hope that you have enjoyed yourself at PTC'15. We hope to see all of you and more at PTC'16. We'd like to once again thank our co-chairs, Joe Weinman, Masaaki Sakamaki, and Bert Krinks. I don't necessarily see Bert here, but they all put a tremendous amount of work. And last but not least, I'd like to acknowledge the PTC team in Hawaii, way back on that table over there. Can you all wave your hand? They're wonderful, they're awesome. I hope you all get to know them, individually, as I have. They are my friends, and I hope they will be your friends too. Anyway, my final word to you all, aloha. Thank you. Enjoy the video.
Ready for something magical.
I'll hear you rolling surf calling, calling and calling to me. Waikiki, it's for you that my heart is here. My thoughts are always returning out there.
Hey!
All right, we're gonna find out. Where did you come from?
I'm from Estonia.
Whoa, and how about you?
Pakistan.
42 hours, 32 hours.
Japan.
England.
Hong Kong.
Canada.
New Zealand.
Malolele Kautonga Ofalahiatu. Australia. Michigan.
Aloha PTC!
PTC! Woo!
Magical.
The world has never ceased changing. People will never stop dreaming. In a practical, effective, and innovative manner, at a speed surpassing the future, China Telecom will set up more and more milestones in the history of telecom industry. Connecting the world, China Telecom.
Thanks for joining us at PTC'15. We hope you enjoyed the conference. We look forward to welcoming you back to Honolulu for PTC'16 from the 17th through the 20th of January 2016. Aloha. PTC TV is brought to you by PTC'15 Platinum sponsor Equinix. Mahalo Equinix, thank you for sponsoring PTC TV.